It's a Thursday at 3 p.m. and you know what that means? Time to start drinking. No, it means it's time for a DraftKings best ball draft here. Of course, we're going to compete for our shot, $15 million in prizes. One of the better tournaments you get into right now, 20 rounds of picks to make as well. And some news going on, in particular, guys like Anthony Richardson, shoulder injury, knocking him out of mandatory minicamp. Probably not a good sign for him when we talk about the news components of best ball and how they impact things. But of course, I'm already in a DraftKings best ball room here. You can see this room filled pretty fast. So DraftKings flying hot and heavy right now. And I believe they have a deal going currently where if you get 5 drafts in, you get $25 worth of tickets. So something to keep in mind here is DraftKings does roll out a lot of their deals, including the bigger deal that they have where if you do your first draft with a $20 best ball lineup that you're building for yourself here, the DraftKings Millie Maker for best ball, you get a free draft as well with that. So 2 entries right away from the jump when you do sign up for a DraftKings best ball tournament when you download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app. So check it out for yourself. Of course, to helping us put on these shows is Stochastic, but also really just a good deal for yourself to be able to get 2 drafts of the price of 1 to kick things off if you are playing best ball this year. Besides that, we'll talk about our 3 rules of best ball. We'll also hit on some news that we have to catch up on here. Guys like Rashee Rice, important practice developments for them. But your 3 rules of best ball, I want to always make sure to hit on these shows because, as you guys know, if you watch Stochastic streams for DFS, it's all about the process, all about using good data and good, hopefully getting good results with it. But really being good about process, being good about data, knowing those 2 things equally as best you can. Try to bring that same approach here to best ball, even though it is a much less figured out, a much less simple sport. Create some of the DFS content you see on here. But the 3 rules of thumb that I have will hopefully give you at least some guidelines, some guideposts, some bumpers, if you want to take a bowling analogy for yourself, if you are drafting teams. And number 1 is being aware of your average draft position, the ADPs you see on the screen here. You take Jamar Chase at number 1 because normally he's going number 1 overall. But also if you take him at pick 5, that means you got a tremendous value that often doesn't occur, and that makes your team more unique as a result. So being mindful of ADP soaking up value, and it doesn't mean you always have to take the guy that's on top of the board in terms of ADP, but it does mean you often don't want to reach 12 picks for a guy because every time you take a guy 12 picks ahead where they normally go, that means somebody else got that guy 12 picks later. That's how ADP works as a construct. Number 2 would be stacking and correlation. Much like in DFS, we're trying to stack our QBs and our wide receivers, our QBs and our tight ends. In best ball, you could also get away with more running back stacking, even if the running back doesn't directly benefit. Let's say a guy gets a lot more rushing touchdowns, your decimal backs, to quote the great Ben Rasa and Laffy on the channel, of course, phrase they've coined, guys that don't add a lot of value besides the pure rushing yards. You can still pair that guy with a QB because really in best ball, you're trying to capture how this offense performs over the course of a season. Does it beat out expectations? A team like Washington last year, even though Jaden Daniels didn't throw a ton of touchdowns to Brian Robinson, because the offense is better, because Jaden had success, because McLaurin had success, Robinson was in position more, Eckler was in position more to have results that were good for them. So even though the correlation's not perfect, in particular for some backs, you'll still find they correlate better than you realize. Number 3, expected value is realized in week 17. On Twitter, there's like an obsession with advance rates, and people think that's the sign of being a good best ball player. In reality, having one team that's alive with a real shot to win in week 17 because it has a good week 17 correlation, and that could mean stacking up your QB with a wide receiver from your own team along with a running back or from their opponent in week 17. That's a way to get good week 17 things. But also in general, the concept of just understanding that you want to build tournament-friendly lineups. That means generally having enough wide receiver upside to spike for that single week, having the stacking and correlation, putting it all together so you have your chance at the big payouts in week 17, because those are the one that matters. Winning the $25 because you advanced in week 15 means absolutely nothing, and it shouldn't mean anything. Winning $2 million, having a shot at the top 10 prizes on DraftKings where they're all winning $100,000 or more with shots at $1 million up top, that's what you're trying to optimize for, just having tournaments that are tournament ready in that way. So that's your 3 rules of thumb here. Hopefully that gets you guys set up for some success. Spags on DK's easy money. I mean, hopefully I am myself, not that playing against me in this room is. But I'm at pick 12 here, so we're going to make 2 picks in a row. We'll have a lot of time to stall in between. Malik Neighbors, really young receiver corner here. Neighbors, I do like. Q-tag on DraftKings sometimes drives these guys down a little bit. Neighbors was previously going at around the 9 spot. Now he's at a 10.8 ADP. So Neighbors is going to be one of these clicks for sure. Nico Collins, I do like. I think my concern for Nico Collins is that the rookie Jaden Higgins coming in. There's a lot of things similar to Nico Collins. Brian Thomas getting squeezed a little bit by Travis Hunter. Brock Bowers will give us week 17 correlation with the elite tight end. And I'll do that. I'll do the week 17 correlation. Like Nico, a good amount. Like Brian Thomas, a good amount. Neither a screaming value at pick 13. So we'll build for week 17. We'll get elite tight end out of the way, and we'll go Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers as our start. Any interest in bumping up a 2-3 turn guy at 13? No, you shouldn't do that at this point. If you are trying to grab guys ahead of ADP, you want to save that mostly for drafting the summer months. Right now, your job should be, if you are drafting, again, as you should, June, July, August. Obviously, May has already passed. But ideally, you're trying to do either a steady trickle of drafts or even better, a barbell method where you draft a lot when the tournaments first open, then you draft a lot before the tournaments are closing because you want to know all the information. And really, that's one thing, too. I know the temptation for some people out there, people who fancy themselves as sharp, and they might not be, but people want to put in a bunch of drafts early in these. It's not the best move. Like if you're a 150 maxer in the DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire this year, you want to ideally get, by the end of this month, I'd say 50 drafts. You can make the case even less than that because you want to have the benefit of news that we're getting in July and August. And news for best ball, even though projections drive us in NFL DFS, and theoretically projections drive us as well in best ball, the news part of best ball is like so important in a way that it's not maybe in other sports besides, I guess, basketball, day-to-day rotations matter a bit. But knowing news in basketball, knowing how things are trending, knowing RJ Harvey today, the Denver back, the people I'm taking very early. You got good draft capital from the Broncos, was used a lot in first team offenses so far. Now Denver's bringing in J.K. Dobbins for a dinner and a meeting, possibly the thing before they would sign him. That said, we have recently seen other players, Gabe Davis with the Giants, another player who's brought in for dinner and a meeting. And then he ends up, he's out back whoring himself. He's trying to get signed with the Steelers now because they didn't end up signing him. No guarantee that he goes to Denver, but you see people overreact now. We'll see where RJ Harvey goes in this room, but it's possible RJ Harvey goes 10 spots after his ADP. Does that mean RJ Harvey's a much different play if J.K. Dobbins comes in? He's a different play. His ADP should probably fall a little bit. I would say closer to your rookies where they have to climb a little bit of a mountain to get a starting role. Your Quinshon Judkins, your Caleb Johnsons. I think those guys be more like where RJ Harvey should go. But really people will panic because of RJ Harvey now not being rolled out the red carpet to a starting job. And that's where your appetite for risk comes in. Your ability to absorb value and use news to your advantage will maybe pay off, or maybe you stay away from RJ Harvey entirely because you're like, well, Dobbins is free and RJ Harvey's still going to pick 40 in rooms I'm in. So that's sort of the push-pull balance you have for the news components of best ball that people, I think, really need to be more mindful of as best you can. Yay, draft chilling at the airport. Just lots of shake my head news going on. Yeah, so other news, I mean, the Anthony Richardson one is a big one. Him injuring the shoulder. It's the same shoulder that he injured a couple of years ago, which knocked him out for basically the entire back half of his rookie, more than that, really, last 12 weeks of his rookie season. For Anthony Richardson, the big thing for me is that he really needed to be in camp and be good right now because Daniel Jones is coming in with a better baseline of just average performance. These two guys last year, again, do like to cite data as much as I can here, even though it does sort of get laborious to pull up the sheet every time. But Anthony Richardson last year, in terms of his catchable ball rate, it was 65%, which is pretty low towards the lower third of the league. 55% on target rate, also pretty bad. Daniel Jones and a Giants offense that absolutely did not work well at times. 78% catchable ball rate, 67% on target rate. So he's getting the ball where it has to go at a much higher rate than Anthony Richardson, and that's been where we listen to coach speak. Last year, a big example would be the Bucs talked about wanting to get a running back in who was going to avoid tackles, create some value after the touch, which they felt like Rachaad White wasn't doing. What happens? They draft Bucky Irving, even though he has low draft capital. He provides them exactly what they're looking for. They get where they want to go. For the Colts, they've talked a lot about the importance of having more accuracy at the position this year, getting the ball where it needs to go because you have theoretically 3 competent receivers, 1 competent tight end, maybe even 4 receivers if you want to lump A.D. Mitchell in there. You have 4 guys you get the ball to, plus a tight end that's coming in with Tyler Warren with really good draft capital, and a running back that you like to use. So really an average QB, guy can just get the ball where it has to go more often than not. It's going to help them, at least in their mind, get closer to making a playoff spot, probably not winning their division, but maybe, if things roll the right way. So that makes it a lot more likely that Daniel Jones could win the job. But then you have AR being knocked out for a period of time, and now it's like, I haven't clicked either guy too often. I also still think you run into the issue that these guys not being available through playoffs, that week 17 expected value, materializing the money that you want to win the most, that when it matters the most. Like it's certain for Daniel Jones that he still won't be starting when that actually matters. But for Anthony Richardson, I don't know how you take him now either and hope for the best there. All right, we're on the clock here. We've got, again, our 1 receiver neighbors, our 1 tight end, and Brock Bowers. I do like Kyren Williams more, I think, generally than the public does. Getting him at a 5-pick discount here also feels pretty good. So Kyron's going to be one of the clicks. Talk of an extension with him at the Rams has been the most recent report. Seems like they're not far away, as opposed to a guy like Terry McLaurin, who is now leaving mandatory minicamp because he's not getting his deal, supposedly. So we are going to go with Kyren first. And we're going to keep trying to stock up receiver a little bit better and go Mike Evans here. I am not the biggest Tyreek Hill fan. I'd honestly be happy to get 0% Tyreek Hill at his current price tags. Do you like Mike Evans, though? I think the fact that he's constantly every year competing to keep that 1,000-yard streak up matters quite a bit. And the guys they added this year, in particular, Mika Egbuka, he's a pure slot receiver. I don't see him doing anything to threaten what Mike Evans does. So Evans, to me, will be the pick. And we've got 2 receivers, 1 RB, an elite tight end. I feel like we're balancing well so far. How is James Cook a player to take 450? Well, I mean, he's just been at this price on DraftKings for a while. And the second part of it to me would be that I just think that for James Cook, the holdout's not priced in yet. People are going to panic about his holdout when it does drag out to July, when it drags out to actual training camp. And it's going to very likely drag out that far because James Cook wants more money than he deserves. I mean, to be totally real about it, if he wants $15 million, I'm all for people getting paid. Look, if I could hold out for $15 million tomorrow, I would do it in a heartbeat. But you can't do that. You have to kind of know your worth. And for him, he was a guy that initially thought he was worth $13 million a year. Reports come out, he thinks he's worth $15 million after how he closed the season. He's good, but it's mostly he's good, I think, in my opinion. I think he's good because Buffalo themselves are good because Josh Allen, what he takes, the gravity of what he does as a quarterback who can run, takes a lot away from just the attention that you pay to the running back. And as a result of James Cook, who, let's look at his numbers here. According to Sports Info Solutions, which I use for my EPA metrics and a lot of other data, 0.03 EPA per rush, positive. It's always good to see for a guy who's got volume like James Cook did. 0.27 EPA per pass, or so per target thrown his way, also pretty good. 15% avoided tackle rate, kind of in that middle range where I think you make the case it's not him creating the value as much as a guy like, let's say, Kenneth Walker puts up a 33% avoided tackle rate. James Conner had 26% last year. Those guys made their team better as opposed to James Cook, who I think took what was there. 3 red zone rushes a game is pretty good usage. 0.3 red zone targets a game, not so much. You can replace those touches for James Cook pretty easily. So I would agree that taking him right now at ADP would not be the move. If he slides a little bit, great. But I do think when you get to July and August, I think the holdout continues on, and I think he gets to the 50 ADP range would be my guess. But he spiked well enough last year that you can take him at whatever price he's at. Like ultimately, if you want to draft a player, like James Cook, the price tag's the price tag. You got to take him when you got to take him. Let's see. Like 4 touchdowns over 40 plus yards. James Cook, I don't have those numbers in front of me. That sounds about right. He did break a couple long plays that maybe not the most repetitive year to year, not the most sticky year to year. But again, I think James Cook is like a fine play. It's just like you got to know what your price is. I think if he held out and was like, I want 8.5 mil a year, he probably can get there. But I think 13, you're asking for the highest tier of running back money. I just don't think you're getting there as James Cook. Let's go to the draft board here. Make sure to keep the views right. And guys, show some love if you can. If you're watching this video and you get any value out of it, even if you're just taking what I say and running the opposite way, if you're taking James Cook at pick 20 now, probably not a good move. But if you want to directly fade me, sure, knock yourselves out. But show some love if you can. Hit the like button down below. Subscribe to Stochastic's channel. Of course, Stochastic known for the great DFS content they have on here. Their OddsShopper content as well. Our different channel doing similar things for the people out there in the world of betting. But in best ball, it's just we're here on the Stochastic channel, kind of fitting in right now, like the redheaded stepchild. But it's still gambling you can do on DraftKings. And you should do it really on DraftKings. There's a lot of great sites to play on. DraftKings is here doing a good job to make sure you get a lot of good entries in, and really the special deals you have on entries is a big thing. In particular, when you put your first entry in for $20, you're getting a second entry for free right away. So that's 2 shots of $50 million without ever setting your lineup again. So download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app right now if you can. Check them out, put in your entry, and start to do some drafts. I mean, I'm trying to max it out this year. Not sure how it's going to work schedule-wise, but that's my goal. I think my sliding goal. But in particular on sites like DraftKings, getting entries in a different times period is an important part because the ADPs are going to look different right now, beginning of June than it will come July, come August, when people know more information, or even they misinterpret information and go a different direction. RJ Harvey goes to pick 56 here. Omarion Hampton 53. So still feels to me kind of like a price ceiling for Harvey. I think Harvey had, Hampton's been at this price tag since pre-NFL draft. The drafts that DraftKings had, other platforms had as well. He was going about the same range as people's assumption that, much like Genty, that most likely guys to be bell cow backs from week 1, starting hopefully the campaign. But now Hampton and Harvey moving down kind of a tier below, and I think it's fair for both guys. We're on the clock here. We've got 2 receivers, elite tight end. At receiver, there's some guys I like. I do like shoring up RB with Kenneth Walker and feeling like we've gotten 2 backs I really trust. So I'm going to do that here with one of the clicks. Kenneth Walker, RB2. And because I have 2 picks in a row, want to make sure to get a receiver in. I like Connor, but it's hard for me to take a third RB before a third wide receiver when we do have to start 3 guys at receiver, obviously. But Calvin Ridley here, a player that I trust a lot. Good camp vibes so far from him and Cam Ward. Basically, they've put the lockers next to each other, which a sign right away these guys are going to be great fantasy assets together, I'm sure. But really, the main thing here is that Cam Ward's been feeding Ridley at a good rate in OTAs so far. Cam Ward also going to be a better downfield passer than everything that we saw Ridley have last year between Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. I think can do the job well enough, but he's not a player on the tier of Cam Ward, in my opinion. Not a surprise, obviously, given that Cam Ward went number 1 overall. But yeah, for Tennessee, to me, if you get Ridley as your wide receiver 3, even better as wide receiver 4, I really like the price tag for him, like the upside for Ridley a good amount. So getting him a pick 61 here. Frankly, him versus Pickens, I'd probably rather have Ridley. Him versus Zay Flowers, I think I'd rather have Zay Flowers. That'd be sort of where my tiers would shake out rankings-wise. Rodgers officially signed with the Steelers just now. Are we making that up? Because I'll give you a timeout if that's a lie. It'd be crazy if it happened right now on stream, but seems like the most general reports are, you know what? You got it. Wow, Michael breaking the news to me. Plans to sign with the Steelers per the insiders, 1-year deal. The most recent reports said he was going to hold out another week or so before mandatory minicamp, but they're getting him in. So there we go. Mason Rudolph, no longer QB1, it looks like. And Michael, reporter of the day. Wow, shout out to Michael. You got that like 1 minute after Ian Rappaport tweeted it. That's really impressive. Michael's got the news part down. So Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh, I guess we could talk about that. And really the big other thing I wanted to talk about news-wise, Rashee Rice being full go in practice. Frankly, a surprise to me, the fact that the Twitter legal experts, in particular Drew Davenport on Twitter, I think he's Drew Davenport FF, if you want to follow him, one of the best legal guys. I think he's gotten pretty much everything I've seen right that he's posted on Twitter. So I would tend to err on the side of him being right. Rashee Rice had no movement in his court cases in Dallas, so expectation is he doesn't get suspended this year, as opposed to a guy like Jordan Addison, who has had movement in California, seems likely to get a 1 to 3 game suspension, maybe 4 if things really align poorly for him. But Rashee Rice, full go at practice, suspension stuff not a risk. I've been down on Rashee Rice because I do think they're bringing in a guy who does a lot of similar things and is a better athlete in Jalen Royals. And the fact you have Worthy in year 2, the fact that, there's enough bodies there, enough mouths to feed, I think it does spook me on Rice. But in terms of his health being full go, in terms of the not being worried about suspension, that's all good to me now. So Rice in this room went really early. He went earlier. He went pick 24. I think it's probably to come up. It wouldn't shock me if Rashee Rice gets to like here. Unfortunately, I don't know if I love that price tag for him if he's going to start going around early 20s. But I think you got to take Rashee Rice where you get him, because I think the Chiefs try a lot harder on offense this year, get a little more aggressive with it. Matt Nagy, in some quotes after the season ended, basically said that Patrick Mahomes is a large part of why the offense has been more conservative in recent years. It's something that I talked about a lot in stream last year. A lot of people thought Casey's offense was going to be this wide open gunslinger offense, when in reality, what they had shown us basically since they let go of the enemy was that they wanted to be a little more conservative offense, want to let defense do the work. I think what they saw in their playoff run last year, and in particular in the Super Bowl, where they got their ass kicked, basically, the defense can't carry it far enough. I think they pushed the offense further. So I can justify taking Rashee Rice and wherever he goes. But the days of him going at pick 30, I think, are quickly evaporating, with suspension risks gone, the knee injury risks gone, him not starting on PUP list. Like, I don't know. Rashee Rice, if you like him, wheels up for Rashee Rice. We got a pick coming up here, though. We got 2 picks, actually. So far, we've got 2 RBs, 3 wide receivers, our elite tight end with Brock Bowers. I hate Diggs. Pink drugs, no pink drugs. Just think old player coming off a knee injury, not my fave. Ricky Pearsall, I'm not crazy about, but he's a wide receiver who can spike, did win a lot of money last year for people, even though, frankly, just didn't think he was a guy who was going to get there. And he didn't really get there besides the fantasy playoffs. So that's now our 4th receiver here, pure spike week guy. I can add another RB here and feel pretty good about it, I think. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the aforementioned Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, a lot of talk in Commanders camp about him taking a leap. I'm hopefully at least taking his role more seriously, or taking getting more talented. I don't know if you can do that. Being more prepared to be RB1 and do some different things is the hope for them, based on some of the quotes that have come out. So Brian Robinson, price tags come up a little bit compared to where he was pre-draft. People are worried that the Commanders are bringing some replacement for him. In reality, they're running back the same team. They added Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt It doesn't really matter too much to me as a smaller back compared to Brian Robinson. Maybe eats into Austin Eckler a little bit, but even that's not the most likely. The draft capital they spent there. So Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, both guys probably going to reprise some version of the roles they had. And for Robinson, that was a really valuable red zone role where he was getting 3 red zone opportunities a game, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah, 3 flat red zone rushes a game, 0.3 red zone targets a game. Overall, 15.1 intended touches a game. That includes him leaving early, I believe, in a couple games. I'm a big Brian Robinson believer. So let's give the team a read here. Prefer to get Bijan Robinson if you can, but the price tags are different. We got Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker here, both week 8 buys, though not too worried about that. Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, Brock Bowers, Ricky Pearsall, and Brian Robinson. So really well-balanced team so far. We don't get an elite QB. Hopefully we'll get something good on the way back because we are now in that period where QBs start to go flying off the shelves pretty fast. Baker Mayfield went at 77 here. I would have loved to have gotten him, but he's DK loves a good early QB. Not much for Fields at 86 in this room is pretty lofty too. But let's see. But yeah, Rodgers to the Steelers. So I guess let's talk about that more. I think the Steelers would have been fine with Mason Rudolph starting, to be totally honest. Rudolph was one of those guys that I think people fantasy-wise doesn't really matter too much for us, but what he did for that team, in particular, keeping Calvin Ridley viable, feeding him even better. I know his first 3 targets, according to Fantasy Points data, were off the charts because I remember putting that together. I was writing a column for Fantasy Points in season. Mason Rudolph last year, again, a high catchable ball rate compared to an Anthony Richardson at 78.1%. On target rate of 67%. 2.3 deep shots a game, good for a 0.3 EPA. He was middle of the road. Aaron Rodgers, for comparison. Aaron Rodgers had an 80% catchable ball rate, so a little bit better there. 70% on target rate, so about 3 percentage points better than Mason Rudolph. I mean, look, Rodgers, for as dust as he may be, for as many flaws as he may have, and I do think in terms of being a pure game manager, like I think an Arthur Smith wants, I'm not sure he's great. His deep targets, 0.4 EPA per target on throws of 20-plus air yards. He wasn't bad. No matter what, he's a better play, I think, than Mason Rudolph. It doesn't seem like the kind of offense to me with Aaron Rodgers that I would expect to be a perfect fit for him, because he does like to improvise a little bit more, does like the ability to kind of have the offense in his hands. For an Arthur Smith offense, it's going to be a lot of runs, which will help, keep the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers for the most part. But it's not him being able to sling it like he likes. And I think that's the kind of thing where the best upside for Aaron Rodgers is still him being in control of the offense, gunslinging it, audible to, plays in the red zone that are passes instead of runs. So I'm not going to be a big buyer in Aaron Rodgers. It's nice to have one more late QB to take at this point where you have pretty confident he's going to start the year and likely go through the fantasy playoffs. But if you're going to flock to Aaron Rodgers because he's a Steeler now, I don't think that's it either. You also run the risk too. Like Alan Lazard was being reportedly flirting with some teams out there. In particular the Steelers, because he wanted to maybe get off the Jets and see if he goes somewhere else. Ends up coming back to the Jets. I'm not sure if that can change now that Rodgers is officially signed, but you run the risk that Rodgers requests some guys to come in. So DK Metcalf is safe no matter what. But Calvin Austin, I'm not sure that he ends up being guaranteed that slot role. If he does get it, Rodgers should vibe with him, because Calvin Austin, I think, has some very, 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 very bootleg Randall Cobb vibes to him a little bit, where I could see him being the kind of player that Rodgers likes. But there's no guarantee that he's a guy that Rodgers likes. So I think for the Steelers, wheels up for taking free Rodgers if you take DK Metcalf. And even that with Freiermuth, I think it's going to be Jonnu Smith staying in Miami and then getting a slightly revised benefits deal for him, where maybe get some more incentives if he hits some milestones. I don't think they're going to be able to get Jonnu. So we'll see what the Steelers do. But I think good for Metcalf and Rodgers, maybe less good for anything else there. Jalen Warren, fine. Caleb Johnson, fine. Or you got Bo Nix here on the clock. Really not great wide receivers to go to if we want to set up QB coming up. I'm just going to do... no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do Bo Nix. I'm going to take that value here. He's a 90.9 ADP. Taking him at pick 108, I think, feels like a pretty logical thing to do. Bo Nix falling in some rooms. I think Evan Ingram would be the logical click to make here. I just hate that we're not getting another receiver in at this point. I feel okay about receiver. Ingram would allow us to be done at tight end. So let's do that. Bo Nix and Evan Ingram on the turn here. And hopefully we could skim some more Denver receivers later on. For Bo Nix, obviously we're not going to have Cortland Sutton with him, so we're losing the highest upside receiver. But we've got guys like Neighbors, Evans, Calvin Ridley. Pearsall, I think, can outscore Sutton in enough situations as well. That's what we're going to live with. So 2 picks on the turn again. We go Bo Nix and Evan Ingram. The team so far, Bo Nix, our first QB. We got Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker as our RBs. Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley. Then a tight end, elite Brock Bowers. Took him early for the Week 17 correlation with Malik Neighbors. Ricky Pearsall is our flex, technically, our 4th receiver off the board. Brian Robinson, 3rd RB. Evan Ingram, 2nd tight end. So that's really it. Just got to make sure not to take a tight end anytime soon, but I think it's aligning well enough. So happy enough with the team here. Of course, doing these DraftKings drafts on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. So show some love if you can. Hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed to Stochastics channel. And keep showing up here. Again, there's going to be a lot more news as the summer goes on right now. Frankly, stuff like AR's injury, pretty newsy. Rashee Rice being full go, I think pretty important news. So we are getting a trickle down of some stuff. If you are trying to keep up with news, 2 things I would recommend. Number 1, subscribe to The Athletic. Try to read every article if you can. If you don't want to especially rely secondhand on Adam Levitan or somebody tweeting it out, or the 32 beat writers accounts, or the Coach Begin Next guy tweeting something out. Even those guys will pull, there's a lot of people out there somewhere. I just named those 3 because those are definitely 3 mainstream kind of populist ones that a lot of people follow. Get the news yourself from The Athletic. I think there's also some nuance sometimes gets lost when headline from article becomes, 1 paragraph blurb, then becomes a Twitter person picking up just the headline. So just something to keep in mind there that I'd recommend. Second part of it would be, to try to go on Twitter, follow some of those kind of accounts that are accumulating information, but really just being mindful of, again, the news part of things, how important it is. And also mostly focusing in on not so much, Efton Chisholm's playing really well. He's got 5 catches with the 3rd team, but focusing in on if Efton Chisholm is now playing with the 1st team, does that matter? It's hard for a guy like him to overcome a bunch of draft capital in the wide receiver room. If you're not familiar with Efton Chisholm, he's guys getting some buzz for the New England Patriots so far. I think a slot, mostly targets, is where he's been getting so far. But that's picked up some good volume. So as a result, the New England beat guys, they love to gravitate towards any little fun story for a guy. But in reality, he's not going to beat out the draft capital for guys like Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Pop Douglas, Kyle Williams they brought in this year. He's not going to beat out the contract for Stephon Diggs. So unless that guy running with the 1st team on every possible situation, you shouldn't care about Efton Chisholm too much. But you should care about, running back X is running exclusively with the 1st team. RJ Harvey is running with the 1st team. That's great news for him. The Dobbins part, not great news. So then how do you adjust accordingly where you take guys? Really the biggest part of best ball. It's sort of hard to tell somebody, you lead the horse to water kind of thing. But keeping up with the news year round, if you can, really the best thing you can do. But in particular, when we get to July, I'd really fully recommend just buy an Athletic subscription, read it every day. Get your Twitter stuff curated as best you can. More important to best ball than projections, to be totally honest. All right, so we got to get some more valid stacks coming up. This guy, I don't know if he's throwing the draft or if he's just dumb. DraftKings doesn't throw out many drafts. But this guy is taking the entire Lions team incredibly early. Tim Patrick, Khalif Raymond, Isaac Tesla, the rookie coming in, who is mostly a slot guy. So probably not going to be super relevant unless the knee surgery that Amon-Ra St. Brown had matters a lot. But not sure what this guy's doing here. Sometimes people will tank drafts, so something to be mindful of because on other platforms especially, you do get drafts thrown out a good amount. We got 2 picks here. Mims has to be one of them. I think for our Denver correlation, we need to make it up a little bit more at wide receiver as well. So to make that click, could do the 2nd QB, though I don't think we have to yet. But Drake May, I'm not as crazy about as some other people on, but he's a nice discount at this point. I think Tyjae Spears, though, makes this room a little bit better. Christian Kirk could make our receiver room a little bit better, especially for PPR format. This is a tough call. I am going to go Tyjae. I think we're at a bit of an RB tier break. I'll say not so much a cliff. But Tyjae Spears in a split backfield as part of Tennessee. I have my bet on Tennessee with Calvin Ridley already. So I think he fits more as our RB4 than trying to take another receiver. A tight end we definitely didn't need. Trying to force Drake May in. I'm not crazy about him enough to do it. So the team so far, we got Bo Nix, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker. Get good RB capital spent up top, I think. So I feel good about just being able to kind of pick my spots at RB. Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans. We We got Calvin Ridley, Brock Bowers, Ricky Pearsall, Brian Robinson, Evan Ingram, Marvin Mims. So a Denver double stack. We got soaked up the Bo Nix value, knew that we had some Denver guys we can grab the stack with him. That's one of the things, really the important part of knowing ADP is ideally like the back of your hand if you do enough drafts. And then Tyjae Spears. So a 1-4-5-2 build right now. Need to get going at QB a little bit, need to make up a little more at receiver, but I'm kind of happy with where we are. Think he timed out after starring him up? Okay. Shout out Spurious News, the most handsome Stochasticos. Let's see it. I appreciate that. I think Laffy's gotten sexier over the years. So I think I would go Laffy for myself. I'm taking out Josh, I think. Greg still has a boyish charm, but I don't think it qualifies as sexy. Eric is the least sexy person alive. I think we can all agree. Puppet Link was sexier than him. So I probably controlled 2 of the top 3 spots. EMAC, somebody could go in EMAC. So I don't know. I appreciate the comment though by Spurious News. He's in the bag for team specs. EMAC though. Somebody's got a fetish for somebody who looks like EMAC. I'm pretty confident about that. You could talk somebody into having an EMAC thing. He looks like he'd be a generous lover. And yes, show some love if you can. Hit the like button, subscribe. Again, goes a long way for me here, just doing the best I can. So Stochastic doesn't pull the plug on the show. And of course, we are presented by DraftKings as well. So make sure you're downloading the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app. Get your shot basically to draft a $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million. When you do that, you get your second entry free. So keep that in mind. If you are new to the world of best ball, I have a lot of things here that I tell you guys every stream. You stick to my 3 rules of being ADP slavish, I would say, being didactic about drafting around ADP. Stacking and correlation, knowing all the money's paid off in week 17. Follow those 3 rules. You'll probably do well for yourself with your 2 entries on DraftKings. So check it out for yourself. And of course, 2 shots at $15 million is not a bad thing without ever setting your lineup again. CLN here, loving his squad so far. Appreciate the content. He took Geno here. Geno was definitely a thought for me as a second QB, but he will go for him stacking up with Jacoby Myers. So he went to a good home whenever the QB is going stacked. Much better than when the QB gets sniped unstacked. But your team here, you got Josh Jacobs, Justin Jefferson, get the Burrow single with Higgins. The CLN balancing his draft capital pretty well here. Did go out of his way to get the third QB when you have Burrow, which I'd say maybe not technically the most plus EV. But I like your team. I feel like nobody here really did donkey stuff besides this guy taking all the weird Lions, but he gets a nice value on Kyle Williams, so maybe it all comes out in the wash. You definitely don't want to do this. You don't want to take these guys who normally have an ADP of pick 200 in a row. But usually this kind of draft, like this guy did, where he did reach a ton for 3 guys in the middle of a draft, usually not enough to set off any sort of collusion flagging things. So we will likely have a slightly better team as a result of that guy not having a good team, basically. We got to take Cam Ward as one of the picks here. I will just put him in the queue for now because I want to think about the second pick. We have a 1-4-5-2 with Cam Ward coming in. A different bye week to Bo Nix. All right, you know what? I think this is a wide receiver spot. I like Leggett enough to take him. I do think getting Eckler and Brian Robinson works pretty well because they score their touchdowns in different ways. And I think sometimes randomly they will alternate in ways that are maybe not the best for fantasy, but in best ball you can cover it. And I think I could get away with my receivers for right now. So I am going to go Eckler here. Eckler's going to be our 5th RB, a 2-5-5-2 build. Normally, I think you'd want to have your 6th receiver here, but I'm cool with having Marvin Mims be wide receiver 5 stacked up. I think that works. So a 2-5-5-2 build. Going to have to make it up a little bit late at receiver. Bo Nix, Kyron Williams, and we have 20 rounds, so we could throw 10 receivers on the fire here and try to just get some late guys to hit. But Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker as RBs, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, a wide receiver. Our elite tight ends, Brock Bowers. Flex position, we have Ricky Pearsall. Then we got Brian Robinson Jr., Evan Ingram, Marvin Mims, Tyjae Spears, Cam Ward, Austin Eckler. You think the receiver room definitely need to hit on some guys late. But the RB room is really strong. I feel like I've been suffering so far on these DraftKings streams of not taking enough early RB. I think maybe I overcompensated a bit here and could have done a little better just grabbing some receiver firepower. But, it is what it is. Are y'all doing best ball rankings stochastic again for free? Obviously, I'm not aware of what they're doing. You can get my rankings on Tails on OddsShopper if you want, but I'm not sure what their plans are right now. Pro 3 QB this year. I mean, again, Pro 3 QB with an elite QB is probably still not the move. I think just mathematically it's not, but you can, again, follow your heart, Seal. And you do a lot of drafts, so you can do whatever. But going out of your way for McCarthy early, Geno early, when you got Burrow, I don't think it's not pure best ball if you're using like a solver equivalent for poker for best ball. But whatever. Anything can win in best ball ultimately. Like you want to set up yourself as best you can across the 150 set. But for guys like CLN, if he's going to deviate off the beaten path, or if guys like going to do weird stuff sometimes, like I'll do weird things. I'll take 2 RBs to start a draft, 3 RBs to start a draft, try to still balance my draft capital accordingly. You can do weird stuff across the 150 set sometimes because really all that matters in best ball is everything coming together at the end in the way you needed to win. And whether you took, 2 QBs ahead of ADP or not with an elite QB, it doesn't really matter. It's just if you do that all the time, that's where sort of the compounding errors can kind of prop up. So I pointed out mostly for that reason for you guys who are new to best ball, because I know particularly these DraftKings streams, a lot of us just have money on DraftKings and you're like, well, I don't really want to play baseball today. What am I going to do? If you play best ball, you just kind of want to go in setting yourself up with the general principles there we talk about as best you can. Leggett at 171, nice draft capital for him, getting him this cheap. Hopkins at 172. Hopkins getting some red zone targets so far in Baltimore, which is what I would have expected. He got them in Kansas City, even though they really didn't seem to like using him that much based on how that went. But for Hopkins, think that he, to me, is going to be an elevated version of what you've had in the past from Nelson Aguilar. Probably takes a little bit more off the plate from Rashad Bateman. I would say Mark Andrews that you would like to see. But, I think he, to me, if you have Lamar in particular, a good click. Probably without Lamar, I wouldn't take him too often. Maybe if you have a Green Bay stack and you want that week 17 correlation. But I think Hopkins, especially with the new money coming in for Bateman, clearly separating kind of in terms of pecking order there with Bateman getting paid. I guess it's an important thing to talk about too. Bateman got paid 20 mil guaranteed. I believe the deal is for 37 mil for 3 years in total. So he's basically getting around the Darnell Mooney, Josh Palmer range of money for a wide receiver 2 on a top team. So for Bateman, that really solidifies him safely ahead of Hopkins, even though it does seem like you pay him that money because Hopkins is probably going to take some production away from him. That would be my read so far based on what's come out of Baltimore's camp. And a lot of end zone targets for Hopkins, it sounds like. All right, we're on the clock here. Need to get some more receivers in. Receiver getting bled out a good amount. I think this is where we take a big swing at receiver and take a free agent like Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, even though people won't want to hear it, was like a very strong receiver play last year. Did well for himself in a bunch of different situations. So I'm cool taking him and taking the flyer as wide receiver 6 in the hope that he gives us more upside that he's getting drafted at currently. And Jalen Noel, I think the FUD on him would be, the negative items for him would be that it's been a pretty good camp so far for Christian Kirk. Nico Collins at one point mentioned, like, I believe that that Christian Kirk was the thing we're missing. Guy can kind of rack up slot targets. For that spot, though, Jalen Noel is going to play mostly out of the slot as well. So his route upside's probably capped, I would think, a good amount by Christian Kirk if he is going to be successful. The hope for Jalen Noel is that he takes over Tank Dell snaps and starts to get some deep targets. So for a team like this one, we're just kind of hunting for a late upside, going to try to make up volume at receiver. That's my case for Jalen Noel, even though I do think, in my opinion, he's a less appealing click than he was. Really, pre-draft, I didn't like him that much either. I think he's probably less appealing than he is conceptually because people think he's going to beat out Christian Kirk. I don't think he's going to beat out Christian Kirk. The team so far is a 2-5-7-2 build. We got Bo Nix at QB, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker at RB. So got to 5 RBs here. Since our top 2 have week 8 buys. That's not really the reason why, but you get to 5 RBs generally in most teams. Even if you take that early draft capital. Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, like our top 3 at receiver. Brock Bowers, elite tight end. Happy to take McBride if he's cheaper, but Bowers was there and we got Malik Neighbors. So got some correlation. Ricky Pearsall, Brian Robinson Jr., Evan Ingram, Marvin Mims, part of our Denver stack. We don't have any KC bringbacks yet, though. Hopefully we can find some. Tyjae Spears, Cam Ward to complete our Tennessee stacking. Austin Eckler filling out the RB room. Keenan Allen for the receiver upside. Jalen Noel, same thing here late as our 6th and 7th receivers. I'm happy with the team so far. I think obviously the last few rounds on DraftKings can make or break you if you somehow get good values around 17, around 18, around 19, around 20, even better. But I think even if we have to hunt for guys that are going to be probably a little bit off the beaten path, I think we're in an okay spot. Try to get you more of the board here. There we go. That works. Guys, show some love if you can. Again, subscribe down below with the like button. I will also be doing a draft on my @SplashPlayPod channel after this one. And you would think that I would have the URL saved on Firefox at this point, given that I have to do this exact thing every single time. I'll be going live here. Right after this one, another draft, another PPR draft we'll be doing on a different platform. So if you want to go get some more best ball, hang out with me while I probably spark one up. I mean, that's what I'm going to do. That's the promise of the show. So you check that out on Splash Play after this one. My 420 Thursday draft is a weekly thing on there. Let's check that out. But here I'm of clear mind and body doing a DraftKings draft to make sure that we're doing a good job for you guys on Stochastic, because God forbid. Imagine if I were just lighting up blunts on Stochastic. We can't do that. Splash Play, you can do that because nobody cares. Nobody watches, you know? So that's a push-pull dynamic. Tyler Shuck going here at pick 197. He is your desperation late QB. Let's see, did Rodgers go already? Rodgers did not get drafted. So at this point, taking Aaron Rodgers for free is your last QB out. Even Russell Wilson going top 200. I don't love taking Russell Wilson. Just because really do strongly believe that Jackson Dart gets on the field by the end of the season, in particular when you need it to happen the most in the playoffs. But, you know, Russell Wilson, if the Giants are a playoff team, it is likely going to be Russell Wilson starting the whole time. Oh, there you go. EMAC coming in. He must have heard me talking about his sex appeal earlier. How much McBride and Bowers have you been going with, or do I just catch certain drafts? Overall exposure-wise, I don't think I'm too crazy. Let me see if I could find here. But I would say I'll be above the field on it and not have an issue with it. I mean, I like both guys a good amount. Elite tight end gets kind of shit on by some sharp players out there. So I don't know that there's a perfect answer to it. And late tight end, I'm also pretty comfortable with. But I've got 10% Bowers, 18.5% McBride. So definitely I've been heavier on those guys than the field. And in particular, McBride, I just think is too cheap compared to Bowers. We've got Ayumanor here. We've got Jackson Dart here. We have the Tennessee bet, so Ayumanor I do think is a logical click. Round 18. I think for this team, because we have QBs, we know we're starting to, for the majority of the year with Cam Ward and Bo Nix. I think we could withstand Jackson Dart here no matter what and just hope that he plays at some point. So Jackson Dart, I'm going to take his QB3 for myself. Think he's the better bet for a team like this where we don't need week one production. If you need week one production, take Russell Wilson and hope you can solve it by the playoffs. Hope that he runs hot enough that he's actually playing week 15 through week 17 and somehow able to stay healthy. But if you've got good QBs and you have Malik Neighbors and you also have a Brock Bowers bring back, take the shot on Jackson Dart because he's the better player. Hasn't been shown it at camp so far, but he's the better player in my opinion. On DK, elite tight end is so much more, makes so much more sense, especially since Bowers, McBride, or PPR Demons want to be 2x to 3. Wow, okay, so, I mean, 3x the field, getting him in about a quarter of your lineups to be a little bit aggressive given the price tag, I think, for McBride and for Bowers, but I like them a lot. I think really the main thing to me, and I've talked about this on a few of the streams, but it is one of my general, not the top 3 rule of thumb for people drafting, but for me is a part of how I draft. When guys have been good enough to earn a really good ADP in year 1, year 2, year 3, so like, on top of the board here, that would be, Gibbs, Puka, Neighbors. Jency is a rookie. I wouldn't count because he hasn't played in the NFL yet. McBride, Bucky, Drake London's a little bit further along. Brian Thomas, Bowers. Like all these guys have earned a really high ADP and they haven't theoretically hit their production ceiling. Like for tight end, your production ceiling is not really supposed to be till like year 5. But in general, for skill positions, there's a big jump from year 1 to year 2. Big jump then from year 2 to year 3. Year 3 to year 4, you've mostly stabilized, but that's generally how it's supposed to go. So like if you're getting a guy who's already deserved his ADP and he should theoretically hit an even higher apex, like McBride, like Bowers, I'm cool taking that shot. But I think it's very cozy to take on DraftKings in particular, take 3 tight ends late, take 4 tight ends late, and still feel good about that because you have a lot of vets that are not as dusty as they're priced. Like Juwan Johnson got paid huge money for a guy that I don't know who else is going to pay him that much money. Jatavian Sanders, Tommy Tremble had back surgery after getting paid in March, so he's going to be out for a while. Sanders can cement that role for himself. He's not a bad click. Chigakonkwo spiked late last year. They did bring in Gunnar Helm as a rookie. And they still have the other dude whose name, Josh White, who's not very good, but, can play enough tight end as well. But Okonkwo really did get targets at a way that he has not gotten as a pro than the home stretch last year. So with a better QB, I'm cool taking that shot. Theo Johnson, I think, has merits late. Ferguson, I wouldn't take over Higbee. I think Higbee is going to be your first shot at the role here, and got targeted a ton last year when he played for the Rams after getting healthy. Point being, those like late tight end and the mid range too is a lot of credible guys. I won't list them all out like I just did, but like you could make a late build and feel really good about it. So I think just as a result, taking your early elite tight ends and hoping that they put up, 20 points a game in the playoffs, I think it makes sense. But I think the data does support generally less elite tight ends, especially at that price tag. So it is what it is. Free Mac McBride is someone who's been ending up with start off a wave of half a dozen DK slow drafts. Yeah, I mean, look, I like McBride. If McBride sucks this year, then I'm gonna be wrong about it. But there are times too where like I've had two RBs up top because, as I mentioned, talked about on stream, love a Bucky Bijan start. I also like a Saquon Bucky start. I'm okay with Saquon Jonathan Taylor if you get him too. Like I think there's a good way to align your draft if you take two RBs in the first 2 rounds. A couple times it's happened. I've got McBride to fall back in the 3rd round. And if I do pivot off receiver that much early, I normally want to jam receiver so hard. But I like McBride at such a high level that for me, like I'm willing to take him and absorb the risk at receiver because I think that's how good of a click he is. All right, so again, we're just adding a lot of volume at receiver at this point, but receiver is really getting bled out. Look, I don't think a 3rd tight end is a bad play. I do like Higbee enough to prop up tight end. Again, Bauer should make our roster a lot, but we have a 20-round draft, and I'm not sure anybody on the screen is adding a ton of value for me. I never take Taysom Hill because he is an old player coming off an ACL tear who also needs to cut and run a lot as like a guy taking RB snaps. So not one of my preferred clicks. If you're wondering why I'm not taking him, really, this is an ugly spot. Weird bet to make late. But I take Troy Franklin. Is Troy Franklin still available? I could have taken Troy Franklin instead. We got Bo Nix. We'll take the big receiver that people are not taking in drafts right now. People take Pat Bryant a good amount. He was an okay target earner last year, but not a great athlete. That's why the Michael Thomas comp. You hear it from Sean Payton. I don't know it's actually as much of a good thing as people read it as. But Valet, I think, played well enough last year. I'll take that stab. Troy Franklin's probably the more appealing click. I should have looked him up first. Final team is a 3-5-9-3. Spent a lot of capital at RB, so I feel good with the 5 running backs at the spot overall. We got Bo Nix, Kyron Williams, and Kenneth Walker on top. We got Malik Neighbors, wide receiver here. Again, good pick that we also stacked up late with our little buddy here, Jackson Dart. Also, I should have retweeted this from Stochastic earlier on Twitter. So doing that right now in parallel, so I can maybe catch a few people late on Twitter because they don't tag me in it, so I never see it on time. Tight end, Brock Bowers. Actually, no, I skipped that. Wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley. Tight end, Brock Bowers. Then we got Ricky Pearsall on top. Brian Robinson Jr., Evan Ingram, Marvin Mims, part of our Denver stack. Tyjae Spears, Cam Ward, part of the Tennessee stack we built out. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen. Again, kind of starved receiver a little bit more than I would have liked to in the middle part of the draft. So trying to take big swings. Keenan Allen, I think, is more likely than not going to be a replacement for somebody who gets hurt in camp. And if not that, he's just going to go to a place that needs him because they realize we're missing something. Either way, I think Keenan Allen still gets a good outcome. If he ends up being Will Fuller, I apologize, but I'll be the one suffering, I'm sure. For a lot of my teams, Jalen Noel, Alec Ayamanor for Tennessee. So another Tennessee target here because Lockett was gone. Really nobody else of note left. Jackson Dart, Tyler Higbee, Devon Valet. Could have maybe dug a little bit deeper for these last picks, but DraftKings round 19 and 20. If you don't have anybody good left that's falling as a value, kind of think is barren currently right now. That's going to change when we get to July and August and there's more value to go around. But as it is right now, I think that not loving round 19 and 20 too much on DraftKings. The dude went 2-3-11-4 after doing the autoing Detroit. Oh, is that? Let's see. So this guy in the draft took Laporta, Kelsey. So his receivers are. Oh, he's got 11 receivers. He's got a lot of receivers. But he's got Bijan, Montgomery, ATN as his RBs. Yeah, and took a ton of other positions. Look, it's not a well-built team. I think we knew that. And I said it before, and it is one of the things that people like. I'm not trying to be mean when I say it. It's hard for people not to get offended. On DraftKings, you'll probably find in most rooms 3 people, 2 people, I would say at the very least 1 person just lighting money on fire. And for DraftKings, it's a benefit for you guys because you want to have shitty teams in your pods. The more shitty teams you have in your draft and in your pod, the better your chances are to build a good team in the draft, the better chances you are to build a good team that survives your pod, or even a team that's not great but survives with lower owned players. That's that. So that's that. I appreciate this from Fact. Nice analysis, Bags. Any other stochastic hosts doing these and featuring other sites? It's only DraftKings on stochastic that I'm aware of, but you can check out my Splash Play pod channel if you want to see me do some drafts on other sites, including right now and tomorrow. I'll be doing a draft on all 3 big platforms. But before we talk about that, we should talk more about DraftKings. Again, happy hour deals going on right now. If you draft 5 best ball teams, you get $25 in tickets. It's one of the deals they have. The other big deal they have is if you sign up for 1 draft, you do 1 draft right away, you get a free ticket immediately for your second draft. So immediately that's 2 shots at $15 million, $2 million up top, $1 million second place. Top 10 finishers win $100K. It's a really nice prize pool on DraftKings. Have to beat out only 1,000 people in a final, which is a lot less than you have to beat out in your given DFS week. So check out DraftKings Best Ball if you want. It is a great site to play on. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app and play on there. Really, do you think they're rewarding people for putting in volume this year more than they have in the past? And with how it's gone in the last few years, over the summer, you're probably going to find a lot of great deals for DraftKings drafts coming up. But shout out to all you guys who did hang out today. I'll be hopping on the Splash Play pod channel. I'll drop it in the Discord one more time for a little bit of a sillier draft we're going to do on another site. But I'll see you guys on there. I'll see you guys next week for more on here as well. And stay tuned. Later today, you have your MLB Live Before Lock and the NBA Finals Showdown Live Before Lock with Josh Engelman going solo later on. So watch that later. Come hang with me on the Splash Play pod channel now. And I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck and go draft on DraftKings. Bye-bye.